Indelawasin Denise Pulio Sagamasqua, Wood Delawasin Paul Pulio Sagamo, Kawasak Band of the Pennacook Abenaki People, Kiona Ayan Odna Kuanipi. Hello friends, my name is Denise Pulio. I'm the head female speaker, and this is Paul Pulio, head male speaker and chief of the Kawasak Band of the Pennacook Abenaki People. We come to you today from our ancient Pennacook village called Odna Kuanipi, which translates to the village of the narrowing of waters, now known as Alton, New Hampshire.
We opened by singing the Nakina. Oftentimes we're asked to do land stewardship or land acknowledgement statements. We try to use this song in particular because it talks about our ancestors that came before us, the land, and the fact that the greater mystery of life, Gisinawaskom, put us here, and we give thanks to the fact that the land is here, our ancestors gave it to us, and we are stewarding it today, and we give thanks to the Creator itself. So that's what that's all about.
So as we start tonight's event, we wanted to offer a land acknowledgement and stewardship statement. As we all journey through life, we wish to acknowledge the spiritual and physical connection that we, the Pennacook, Abenaki, and Wabanaki peoples, have maintained to Ndakina, our homeland, and the Aki, land, Nebi, water, Awan, air, Olakwikak, flora, and Awaasak, fauna, for over 12,000 years. We, the Alnambak, the indigenous original human beings, ask you to acknowledge the hardships that we continue to endure for countless generations after the loss of our unceded homelands. We seek your help to foster relationships and opportunities that strengthen the well-being of all living things as we all carry forward the stewardship traditions of our ancestors. And tonight is one of those experiences now. So we've been working with Dartmouth Geisel for a few years now, trying to highlight the Indigenous presence here in the college. And tonight's event is one of the events that has culminated out of that discussion. And so we want to thank the panel members that have joined us tonight, and we want to thank Geisel and Dr. Lisa for all her help in putting this event together, because if without her, this would not have happened. And so at this time, I would like to step down and welcome the students to introduce the panel members, and I'd just like to say, Katsioliani, Katsi Nawask, Kamanikwa Daminana, Olito Gowangan. We give great thanks to the Creator that we remember still.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Just want to take a moment to thank Paul and Denise for being here and offering their time and knowledge with us. Just want to start, it's a great honor to be here. You know, my name is John Marshall. I'm a second-year medical student here at Geisel. One of the 3 members here today from the Association of Native American Medical Students here at Geisel. A small group here on campus. You know, we put a lot of work into making events like this happen, and it's a true honor to bring such an esteemed panel here to talk to us today. I just want to acknowledge Henry and Trey in the audience too. You know, we're a small group here at Dartmouth, but you know, we try to you know, create a sense of Indigenous community here within our medical students. I just want to take a moment to thank the DICE office, Dr. McBride, I don't know where Jerome, Faroj are. They're somewhere out back probably working hard. But just thanking them for putting in all this work and time and effort to make tonight's event happen. A little bit about, our monthly activities. It is December now, but for the past month and then now we've been putting on this little bit of events for the community to try to acknowledge, the Indigenous presence here in our medical school, and then really focusing in on our theme this year is, our heritage is healing, and that's something that, us as students and medical providers really take to heart. And, we just want to take time to thank those that came before us and that are doing hard work in our communities, and then us as future doctors who will go out into our communities and put this work forth. It is great to have such a great panelist here. I just want to take a moment to introduce everyone to Dr. Patricia Dillon, great Geisel alumni here who put in a lot of work getting people in for us here tonight to have speakers. And then in the middle we have Dr. SALADIN. Dr. SALADIN, currently working in Oklahoma, is a member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, graduated from Howard University. And then we also have Dr. MCCABE on the end here, a great physician leader from the Navajo Nation, retired working out of the University of New Mexico. And I think it'll be a great evening tonight. There'll be food, song, a great time to reflect and gain a lot of knowledge. So I just want to take a moment to appreciate our panelists here and welcome them to the stage.
Hi, I'm Dr. Patricia Dillon. I'm going to start off as I'm the MC for this evening's panel discussion, and these are two of my very close friends. I've met both Dr. McCabe and Dr. SALADIN through the Association of American Indian Physicians. When I was a first-year medical student, I received a phone call from AAIP, and they wanted me to come and attend a meeting, and I kept saying to the person on the phone, "Oh, no, I don't think I'm what you want. I've never grown up on a reservation." And he said, "Oh, all the more reason we need you." And I said, "Well, but my family comes from Canada." And he said, "Yes, you're Mohawk. We know that, and that's all the more reason we need you." And so, after spending some time with, I went to an AAIP meeting, and it was on Navajo, and I fell in love with the Navajo culture. And so after that, I spent every summer I could volunteering on the Navajo reservation. And I originally wanted to become a general surgeon and then practice on Navajo. But, careers, people, it's kind of like your probably when you go to college, everybody changes their major at least twice, during their college years. Well, I ended up in public health preventive medicine. But I still go to AAIP meetings every year. And I really value the people who are my colleagues who care for Native Americans in their everyday practice. So I'm going to try to bring out the best of them and let you know a little bit about them just through a kind of question and answer session. So I'm going to start out with Dr. McCabe, and I'm going to ask you to tell us, what was your childhood like?
I think this is on. Can you all hear me? Yeah, good, awesome. I'm saying to you, hello, my people, Diné people, and all our other relations. So I'm happy to see you all here tonight. I want to thank Dr. McBride for inviting us. She is awesome. You can't let her go. She's making changes, and I have to say this. I knew a lot about Dartmouth before. And I heard the stories about how non-supportive Dartmouth was towards its native peoples. I think Dr. McBride is really changing the landscape here. She's doing a great, great job. Albuquerque, New Mexico, Nasha, from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Ashihinishle, do kia ani bashashin, twitachitni shache, do twadlini shanale. Those are my clans. The Diné Nation is a maternal society. So my first clan is the Salt clan. And that's my mother's clan. And my children all take the Salt clan also. My father's clan is the Towering House People clan. So that is the clan that I was born for. And that's those words that I used in that introduction. Akut ego, astana nishle. So by introducing myself in the way that I did, if you notice, I didn't use my name. Instead, I used my clans. I tell you where I'm from. Now, I could have expanded that to let you all know also that my mother's family is from Mini Farms, Arizona. My father's family is from Crown Point, New Mexico. That's how, if we're on the reservation, on the res, and I can still call it a res, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can call it the res, but I can, because I was raised on it. So he's from Crown Point, so she came from Western Navajo Nation, the Netra. He came from Eastern. And they got together, and that's how 9 of us came about. I have a total of 8 brothers and sisters, including myself. It's 9. Shestwi, Do Shazani. So that's my elders. So if I say anything here today that is wrong, I apologize. Thank you. You want? Should I answer?
Do you want to? Yeah, go ahead and answer. So the first question I'm going to ask her is, what was your family like as a little child? And then I know you had a very interesting school-age history. So.
Yeah, so I was, as I mentioned, I was born and raised up to a certain point on the Navajo Nation, up until the age of 5. From age 5 until my senior year, I was put in boarding school. So I went through all the boarding school experiences that you hear about. And some maybe not as bad as what I went through, but it was bad. It was bad. And so I spent my years there, like in Canada. I'm sure, I'm thinking you've all heard about what has gone on in Canada with their peoples, their Indigenous peoples up there. Horrible, horrible stories that have come out of there. We also at the boarding school had those awful, awful stories. And just one example. So I was 5 years old, right, when I first got there. We, the first graders, or kindergarten kids, were put to bed at 6 o'clock. And all of us were wakened 6 the next morning. We couldn't go to the bathroom. They kept us in bed, and if we went, we got beat. So you think about that. You think about our little bladders, you know, that are just filling up there. And a lot of kids wet their beds, and then they got beat for that. So that's why I'm saying it wasn't a good thing. It really wasn't a good thing. From there, well, actually in the 8th grade, they asked our class, 8th grade class, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I want to be a doctor. And it's interesting because the advisors there, we didn't really have advisors, just teachers talking to us. She said, Melvina, I don't think you want to be a doctor. I think you want to be a dental hygienist. And of course, you didn't argue. If you argued, you got beat. So I thought in my mind, I said, okay, fine, you tell me that. I know what I'm going to be. So I stayed on that path. It was a really hard path, but I stayed on it. And there was a gentleman there at that school. We had all our IQs tested. I think it was in the junior year, senior year, I can't remember for sure. But we had our IQs tested. And he came back to give us, all the students who took it, to give us our results. And then he said to me, you know, Melvina, if you don't go on and do something with your life, I'm going to come down and haunt you and track you down. So I knew, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I did good on that test. So anyway, so I figured, okay, that was affirmation. I can do this. I can do this. So then I went to the universities, of course, and then also had 2 children, and then went to medical school. And did a family medicine residency, followed by a 3 years of, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of family medicine residency, and then 2 years of geriatrics. And back in that fellowship, and back in that time, you had a choice of doing just a 1 year to do clinical geriatrics, and then you could do a 2nd year, which was your research. And I loved research, just absolutely, absolutely loved it. So I remember, and this goes back again in my mind to when I was little, being on the res, and my brother and I were playing outdoors in the dirt, creating roads with these little tiny cars that we had. We each had 1 car. And so we would play with them. But in the meantime, we're doing this, and I look on the ground and I see all these ants. And I see them moving along, and I'm like, what's going on here? And they're all single file, and they're all following one person. And they all go to their ant nests. And I'm like, how do they know to do that? So at that point, again, I think that's where my mind started with the research part of it. I got to figure this out. How do ants know to do this? And so that just stayed with me, that type of thinking. And I think our other doctor here, Dr. SALADIN, has a similar thing that she talked about when we were sitting here. There was a curiosity there that just enveloped my mind, and I've continued to do that. And so when I went to my faculty position, which I spent 30-plus years in, my research was with tribal nations. I did a research project when hantavirus, I don't know if any of you remember that, the hantavirus outbreak on the Navajo Nation. I did a research project there. And I also did one on diabetes and with the Navajo Nation. And one of the papers that I produced from there was, and this is for any researchers in the group here, is the informed consent doing what it should be doing for our people? And when you look at that, it isn't. It isn't doing it. And so I wrote the papers making suggestions on what some of the things we really needed to look at as we did this. So that was that. So, oh, now I have 4 grandchildren. Beautiful, beautiful grandchildren. Of course, everybody's going to say beautiful children, but they really are beautiful.
Okay. Dr. SALADIN, tell us a little bit about your childhood and how you ended up where you are. And you're going to have to move closer to your...
Well, I'll start by saying that I was a middle child, and so that was not always fun. I had two sisters, one older and one younger, and then a younger brother. I grew up in the country in western Oklahoma, so there's not a lot of trees. It's mostly like wheat fields, and it's really windy and hot. And so I lived in the same house my whole life. My parents still live there, and this next part is kind of funny, but cool. But I got married when I turned 18, and I'm still married to the same person, so 23 years. Anyways, but that's also something that it might not be so unusual in Oklahoma, in the country. Like, you meet your future spouse at church or something, and then you just get married. And so, but anyways, I had a very supportive husband who told everybody that I was going to be a doctor, like before I even knew I got into medical school. And I would be so embarrassed, and I would tell him, please do not tell people this, because I don't know if I'm going to become a doctor. Like, it's a really big deal, and I'd rather not have to go back and be like, hey, I didn't become a doctor. So, but he just kept telling people that. And so anyways, got married, went to the college in my hometown, because that's just what you do. Didn't even apply to any other colleges. But he supported me the whole way through undergrad, and then also through medical school. But I didn't really tell about my childhood. I don't know if I answered that question.
That's okay.
My mom was a lab technologist and worked at the Indian Clinic in Clinton, Oklahoma, and we grew up going to that clinic for our medical care. And another thing about my childhood was I was homeschooled through high school. So my parents homeschooled my younger siblings, and they gave me the option if I wanted to do that. I was really social and like, I didn't think that would be fun, but for some reason I decided that I would do that through like in 9th grade, like a few months after 9th grade started. And then I was 15. And so that winter on December 20th, my mom and I were going Christmas shopping, and we hit ice on I-40, the interstate. And so we were in a really bad car accident where I broke both of my femurs and like my arm, shattered my patella, and like really could have died. And I think it wasn't until, I mean, I knew I could have died. Like I knew that as a 15-year-old, I was sitting there thinking like, okay, I'm gonna die. Like I was awake and alert, and it was pitch black and quiet. And this was before cell phones, 1998. And so we were just praying that someone would find us. But I think going through that as a 15-year-old really shaped me and allowed me to have a lot of empathy for people who are in positions where they're helpless or need help. And but that was like my major childhood trauma, and it definitely formed my desire to help people. I just didn't dream of becoming a doctor. Like that never crossed my mind really until a professor in college started encouraging me to do that. So, sorry, way off topic.
No, you're fine. You're fine. All right, we're going to go back to Dr. McCabe. Tell us about something that your family or tribal members do that was healing for you or for a family member.
Yeah, I think for myself, and I'm only speaking for myself, it really was the dependence on our traditional healing ceremonies and our cultural ways of thinking about things. That's what did it for me. And I'm going to give an example here, and I mentioned my research. I had a big team for my hantavirus research. It included other colleagues, primary care colleagues, that included infectious disease experts, that include lab technician experts. And we were in the second year of that research project, and it just wasn't going. It was not going well. We couldn't get the individuals recruited that we wanted to get recruited. And by the way, the purpose of that was to develop an algorithm so that we could identify an earlier means, a means of diagnosing hantavirus earlier. Because at that time, its mortality rate was 50 to 80%. So we needed to figure, it was brand new. That particular virus was brand new in this country. We found out later that it had been in, I think, South America and in China, I believe it was. But so something was wrong in my mind. And we had worked with our research assistants, we worked with our experts, and it just wasn't going good. So I said, you know what? I'm going to have a medicine man come in and do a ceremony. So we had one that we had who lived on the res. The whole team went out there. And I have to say this, it's a fact. All the other team members were white because that's what was there. No natives, no infectious disease natives, no lab technician, lab expert natives, none. So I took my team out there and I told them what to expect. So, and it was an overnight ceremony, and you start the day with a ceremony, and then you go through the night, and then in the morning, at dawn, it's finalized, and then you go home, but you can't sleep until that evening. But I thought to myself, you know what? I went to medical school. I did my residency. I know how to do this. So we went and we sat down, all gathering that morning, really early. And our infectious disease expert wasn't there. And I was wondering, where is he? Is he okay? And so the other team members came up to me and said, you know what? He had started having really bad belly pain, stomach pains. And so we encouraged him to go to the ER, and he was on his way in. But they said he was refusing absolutely refusing to go because he's not going to miss this. So he got there, still with the pains. He's all bent over and everything. We all sat down. And we didn't know this until he told us this afterwards. But what he said was, as soon, and I'm not exaggerating, he said it, as soon as the medicine man started their chants, and there was more than one, there was 4 of them, he said the pain went away. And they couldn't believe it. And I looked at them, I said, do you believe it now? They said, yep, we believe it now. So it says here, our heritage is healing. That's in my mind, physically, that's a classic example of how our cultures and our heritage heal this way. A lot of people don't believe it. I had a really close member of mine say to me, do you really believe that the medicine men are this powerful? This is not in my family. That the medicine men are this powerful? And I said, why would you doubt them? And he said, well, how can this be? How can they heal people with just the chants and et cetera, et cetera? How can that be? And I said to him, do you believe in Jesus? He says, yeah. How can that be? How can Jesus heal you? He didn't have an answer. I said, think about it. You think your way of healing, your way of looking at life is the only way to be. I'm telling you, it's not. Our way is healing. Our ways are powerful. So that's how I that's how I incorporated these into my work. My culture has always been with me. It will remain with me. And I've always identified myself as a Navajo woman, Dene woman. I don't start out by saying I'm a physician. I don't start out that way because that's not primary in my mind. Primary is Dene, Asana Dene, Navajo woman.
Okay. Dr. SALADIN, tell us anyone in your family or in your tribe have any exposure to medicine man or medicine woman or traditional healing that you can recall?
So I think growing up in Western Oklahoma, I was not actually, my tribe was more on the other side of the state. And so I didn't really have interactions specifically with my tribes, like medicine men or anything like that. When I started my first job out of residency, it was for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Tribe in Cherokee, North Carolina. And I remember my patients teaching me probably more than I had ever been taught about their culture, and learned about medicine men, and also what was referred to as bad medicine or something that might have been causing them an ailment. And so that was really interesting for me to learn that from my patients. I'd never been taught that before. But as far as my family support, I think most of my family, I was in Washington, D.C., and they're, home in Oklahoma. I think most of them just supported me in just a community type of way where they checked on me, spoke with me, prayed for me, listened to me. I think more as after residency and I guess I was an adult in medical school, but I feel like I'm more of an adult now. I don't know. I'm more adultish. I don't know. But I think that now I'm learning more about my culture than I did even as a young child. And I think a lot of people are, because they're realizing hey, we really, not just for the healing part, but we need to learn this because we have to pass this on to our children. But I do believe that it is healing. I have become friends with in Oklahoma and participated in some ceremonies with people of other tribes, and just the feeling that you come away with after you have a weekend like that or have time with other people in that like special way, then you just feel more whole and complete. And as far as like what do I do personally, like I live out in the country and I love being outside, and so sometimes it's just having my hands in the earth or being bare feet on the ground and thanking God for this plant that's growing and giving me food, and I try to teach that to my kids too, but I think that you don't have to. If you weren't raised with knowing your ins and outs of your culture, or you didn't have somebody to teach you that, like it's not too late to learn and to ask, and you don't have to feel like, you're not Native enough or you missed out on that opportunity. Like you really need to ask, and people want to share with you. Like the elders do want to share with you their knowledge, and so I just encourage you to not like let those little voices, that make you think like. They'll make fun of me or they'll think I'm not Native enough or whatever. Like, don't let those overpower your desire to learn about your culture.
Excellent. Dr. McCabe, what was the health care like that you received as a child?
It was all, because I was at boarding school, we didn't have any private insurance. It was all the Indian Health Service. So anytime anything happened to us at the school, and of course all these kids, of course there's something's going to happen medically. Sure enough, it did, and so all our care was given by the Indian Health Service. And Gallup still has the Gallup Indian Medical Center, which is right nearby, and so that's where they took us. So and my family was the same way. By the way, my mother was a dormitory matron. And my father was a janitor. So we didn't have money. We didn't have any money. But we still were happy, Money doesn't make you happy.
Dr. Saladin, what was healthcare like for you as a child?
It was through the Indian clinic that my mom worked at. And so it was in a town about 20 minutes away. And I do remember the days where like everyone kind of remembers maybe like you didn't have like a primary care team like you do now, and it just seemed more like you just saw who was working there that day. So you didn't really have much of a relationship with your doctor, a primary care doctor. However, we did have a pediatrician there named Dr. Egan, and he, I think, worked there. Let's just say, like, I saw him as a kid when I was, going to the doctor. And when I was moving back home in 2017, after my 4 years at Cherokee, I interviewed there because I thought, I should just interview there. And so in the middle of my interview, Dr. Egan comes up and pinches my cheek. And he was like, I am so proud of you. So he was there a long time. And so that was a presence, that stayed there. But it was mostly at the Indian hospital and yeah.
Okay. Dr. McCabe, tell us, when you're dealing with an Anglo patient versus a Navajo patient, how do you approach them differently, or is the conversation different?
That's a really interesting question to me. Because as I was raised in the Net culture, you go out there and you treat the Net people this way, you treat white people this way, you treat Pakistani people this way, the same way. Because what I was doing is I was practicing my culture. So I don't change the way I interacted with a patient, because I am who I am. And my culture teaches respect. My culture teaches listen. Really listen. Well, this is many, many years ago. I don't know if this has changed, but they said that a doctor, not native, white doctor, on a patient encounter, lets about 30 seconds pass before he or she interrupts. That might have changed, but that was out there. So all I did was do what my culture told me to do. My culture said, respect your elders. And I kind of think that's why I went into geriatrics also. And I see that now, that, you know, we don't have the respect for our elders. We don't. We just don't. At the Association of American Indian Physicians meeting, which is an annual meeting, it's a national group. We, all three of us, as Dr. Dillon mentioned, we all belong to that group. I went into one of the workshops, and everybody was sitting down in the chairs. And I sit in the back of the room, and I observe. I tend to really, really look and observe. And I think that's the other thing that goes into my interaction with patients, too, just in general. So I looked around, and I noticed that some of our elders were standing against the wall during the workshop. And I look in the seats. Our young people are sitting. I said, something's wrong with this picture. So I went out, talked to our administrator, and I said, you know what? This is what's happening here. So after that point, they made an announcement to, I guess they looked around to make sure in the workshops. If you see an elder speaking or standing and you're younger, give up your seat and let them sit. We don't see that kind of stuff happening. I mean, that's a very simple example, but that's not what happens. At another Association of American Indian Physicians workshop, we had the AAMC president come. And he spoke, and I had a question. I asked a question. And he said, oh, well, let me come to you. Let me walk over to you and let's talk. I said, no, I'll meet you halfway. So we went there, we started talking, and I said, I want to point something out to you. I don't know if you noticed this. I said, but did you notice that there's people in the audience? And I said, I don't think you probably did. Maybe your AAMC staff did. But did you notice the younger people were coming up to the elders and bringing them coffee and tea? If they wanted it, asking them, do you want coffee? Do you want tea? And this was during the presentation. And they came to me also. They included me and brought me some tea. And I said, that's the way we do things in our culture. This is how we do it. And I asked him, I said, do you see this at your conferences? Do you see, and these were physicians who brought the coffee and tea. It wasn't the staff or somebody saying, hey, you know what, bring something to Dr. McCabe. She looks like she needs some tea. It wasn't that. It was the other younger physicians who came and brought that during the presentation. That's how we do things for our elders. That's how we respect them. That's how we take care of them. And those are just really just two examples. But I don't see that. I don't see that when I go to conferences that are not American Indian, Alaska Native in nature. So, you know, that's something I think we're really, really beginning to lose. And the way we talk to elders also. Not good, not right.
I'm going to add a footnote. I was in that conference, and I do appreciate Dr. McCabe speaking up on that, but I had mixed feelings when several younger doctors started coming over and offering me coffee. So, yeah, there.
Oh, my goodness. I guess I could just say that I don't think it is any different either. I agree that it's just kind of who you are, how you were raised, definitely showing people respect and listening. I really don't like people to feel embarrassed, and so I tend to overshare. So if someone is, you know, like if, for example, you know, so I was doing an exam for something totally different, but I saw that the patient had head lice, and I was like, oh, I am so sorry to tell you this, but I think you have head lice. And they were like, what? And I'm like, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. It's gonna suck really bad. Trust me. When I was a kid, we had head lice all the time. We did, when my cousins would come visit. And so I was like, this is gonna be just annoying more than anything. But so that's kind of what I do. Like, I overshare, and I just try to make people feel comfortable and human, and know that I'm human too. And I think having like a servant's heart doing it is also really what I try to do. So, like seeing the doctor is sometimes embarrassing for certain things. And so again, I just try to respect people and normalize things. And I don't know, I like, it's kind of like a servant thing when you have to do a diabetic foot exam, because I think about Jesus washing people's feet, and I think about, like, it's respectful when you get down on the ground, and you're looking at someone's feet. And so, I don't know, I just try to treat people like humans.
That's very good. So, Dr. McCabe, when non-Native people meet you, what seems to surprise them, or what type of response do you get?
I think when I first started, so first of all, let me say this. My mother used to say to us all the time, speak up. Because if you don't, that's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to be quiet. They don't want you to speak up. And she was referring to the white man. So I think at first, that's what I kind of had a little difficulty doing, because on the other hand, she said this, but over here it was like, you have to respect those who are quote unquote in authority. And authority is being a doctor. The doctor knows, he or she knows what is needed for you. So you have to respect that. And so at first I kind of just I didn't say much. I just went through the motions. But when I noticed that it was coming to the point where it was beginning to make me feel like I wasn't getting that same respect from the teachers, from the faculty, et cetera, that's when I started speaking up more. And now, I really speak up. So I give an example of, I was on a national committee on research. And I was a new member. So one of the meetings was being held in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, where I'm from, as I mentioned. And the group was already there. And I walk into the room. And, of course, I'm looking around. It's mainly male and all white. And I'm looking around, and the chairperson is sitting at the head. And so I walk in, and they're kind of talking, joking. And he looks at me, and he goes, "Well, who are you?" And I thought, I didn't say what I wanted to say. But what I said to him was, "And who are you?" So just for those students who are coming up, medical students, residents, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. And so, for me, that was something I think they expected of me, was to be quiet, was not to talk up. And they're surprised when I do speak up. And I do not hesitate now, because I'm a grandmother and I'm going to claim that boy. I'm going to tell it like it is. And I know some people don't like it, but some people have to hear it. Some people have to hear these things.
I think for me, the thing I've noticed is if I meet other Native people, or if they are coming to see me as a doctor, and I get more just, I'm so proud of you, or I'm, just really and truly just excited to see like a Native doctor, and so I noticed that, and that's always nice to hear, and it does feel good when people say that. So I would say non-Native people, I mean, sometimes I've had some people come and meet me, and they'll say, "Oh, I heard that you," or I read that you were learning about your tribe's language," and I'd have to be like, "How do you know that?" You know, but it was like apparently on some kind of bio thing that they read about me. So some people do bring it up, and I like to talk about it, but I don't know. I haven't had too many negative encounters, thankfully. So.
And what surprised you, Dr. McCabe, when you arrived at medical school, or what were you expecting versus what did you find?
Yeah, again, it goes back to the culture I was raised in and the culture that I saw at the academic centers and in medical schools. And I've said this in national presentations before, and I'm going to say it again. What surprised me in those settings was the arrogance of academic centers, the arrogance of medical schools, the arrogance of university settings. That surprised me. And I fought that. I really, really fought that. Because I thought to myself, you're no better than I am. Your ideas are no better than my ideas. Your ways are no better than my ways. So you know that ivory tower syndrome they used to talk about? They don't talk about it too much. It's still there. It's still there. Maybe not to the same degree, but it's still there. So to me, it was the arrogance of medicine.
Like I said, I went to Howard University College of Medicine, and so definitely it was a culture shock for me to go from country western Oklahoma to city, very diverse place. And I think what surprised me the most is, and I don't know if it's just unique to Howard, but like it really was like a family feeling, and kind of even right off the bat, like people wanted to see each other succeed. And so, and I didn't think it would be like that. I felt like it was going to be like cutthroat and, you know, like just a competition. And it wasn't like that. It was really actually very comforting to me to just to be accepted and to be encouraged by my friends. So.
Dr. McCabe, do you use any traditional medicines yourself, or can you share with us?
Sure, absolutely. As I mentioned, traditional medicines, that's a broad category. It's ceremonies, which are healing. It's prayers. Ceremonies are the prayers, or the prayers are in those ceremonies. It's actual plant medicine. It's mental, it's emotional, it's physical, it's spiritual. That's all the medicines in my culture that help me stay in balance in that way. So yes, I do, and so does my family, my immediate family, but also my extended family, because that immediate and extended, those are, again, Anglo-white ways of thinking. Native peoples look at all our relations, and I don't mean just the five-fingered ones like us here. We talk about all our relations, meaning them, the two-leggeds, the four-leggeds, all our beings in the sky, all our beings in the waters, all our beings on earth. That's how we look at it. So.
I wear a necklace. I don't have it on right now, but it is it's got the 4 traditional medicines, so cedar, sage, tobacco, and sweetgrass in it. And sometimes I just find myself playing with it, like, and it just reminds me, like, yes, there's a lot you have to learn in medical school, and there's tons of knowledge and information, but it just reminds me that we can really help people from a very simple way. And I'm not saying like you have to use these plants, but it just reminds me of the simplicity of helping people. And so, and then it also just makes me feel really proud. Like there's moments where I just think that my ancestors would be proud to see me practicing medicine in a compassionate way like that, to actually help people, in that way. That's all.
And my last question is to Dr. McCabe. How do we encourage more students to go into medicine?
Good question. Good question. The question focuses on the student. How do we encourage students? But let's step back. Let's think about the infrastructure of our academic centers. Let's think about the infrastructure of our universities. There's a problem there. We're putting the onus on the student. How do we encourage them to come in? We're putting the onus on them. What are we going to do to change that infrastructure to help our students come in? What are we going to do? Think about it. Do any of you have answers on what you would do to change the infrastructure of this academic center? How would you do it? And if you don't, think about it. The message that academic centers give in many situations, not all, is wrong. It's wrong for our students. We should be saying to them, we want you here. We want to help you. We want you to succeed. And if we fail, you fail. So again, it puts the onus on the academic center and the academic center's infrastructure. That's where a large problem lies. One time I had a colleague ask me, why do our American Indian Alaska Native why do our American Indian Alaska Native students not want to come to medical school? I looked at her and said, they want to come. What is it that you are doing that hampers them from coming here? Our students, American Indian, Alaska Native, Indigenous students, should not have to question why they are in the room in medical school. They should not have to question that. They should not have to doubt themselves about being in the room in medical school. That's that self-confidence. That's one thing I've really, really heard a lot from our first-year students. They don't say it, but by what they're talking about, they don't have a lot of self-confidence. So academic centers, we can help that. We can help them grow, because that's when they need it, is that first year. Because you go through 4 years of medical school, tougher than tough. You go to 3 years of whatever, even more of residency, depending on which specialty you pick, and then your fellowships, tougher than tough. So what are we doing to support that? Please, please, please think about it. Think about how you can change the infrastructure to make things better. I will say, Dr. McBride has made, we met with her last night, some of the stuff that she's telling me here. It just blew my mind. I'm like, wow, you've got this implemented here. We were talking here just before the presentation. We had 3 of our medical students who are here, right? The 3 of them, stand up. We applaud you. Thank you. So we were talking, and talking about stuff. Dr. McBride comes up, and she goes, "Yep, just let me know. We're working for you." She said to them, "We're working for you." That's the message that has to come across. Strong, supportive, loving message. Do you know the rates of depression in medical schools? What's the rate of depression at this medical school? What's the rates of depression in our American Indian, Alaska Native students? Do you know that? If you don't know it, you better learn it, because there you can make a difference. There you can make a difference, because it's not just the physical health. The physical health we know. We work our buns off. That's all there is. Sorry about that. We work hard. And that's a given. That still can be supported. But what about the emotional health? We're being trained as doctors to heal people. What are we doing in academic centers to destroy our own? Think about it. And make changes. Make changes. That's got to happen. That has to happen.
Dr. SALADIN, what can we do to get more medical students, Native American medical students?
So I was just thinking that I am an obesity medicine doctor, and one of the ways that I approach that with patients is to speak of it just like any other disease and to normalize the conversations about it. So what I thought about when you were speaking is that's kind of what we need to do with Native students in like professional settings like this is it should be the norm. My daughter and I were attending one of the first year medical school classes this morning, and she said, "Wow, Mom, look how diverse this class is." And I was like, "Yeah, isn't that so cool?" She's like, "I wish I didn't even have to say that though, you know?" And like, I get what she's saying, you know, I wish it was the norm. But I think that's one thing that I learned about this school is this morning, just all of the layers of support that I think are set up here for Native students to feel connected and to have a community and to have that support on many different layers that I learned about. I thought that was really cool. I hope you guys feel those. I hope that's real to you and not just something that's, you know, on paper. But it just was really impressive to hear of like the Native American housing that you could live in, the communities that you're kind of assigned to, or like all these different five mentors, you know, assigned to you when you first come or whatever. So I think just normalizing it and not making it be a surprise anymore, like, wow, look at the diversity, you know? So that's what I was thinking about.
I would like to thank the two panel members, and I think you gave a very good and diverse picture of what Native Americans are experiencing today, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
So I too would like to thank all our panelists for joining us this evening. And I'd like to now take a moment to introduce Brian Blanchette. He's an Abenaki musician, Indigenous artist, and singer-songwriter. He is now going to gift us with a few songs and some discussion about the songs. And thank you very much, Brian.
Usually I like to just get right into a song, but I probably I was called for here. So I started out some 25 years ago wanting to write songs in our language because there's not a lot of songs that survived, you know, the test of time, as we could say, really. First started out with some ceremonial songs, stuff that we could do on the powwow circuit. You know, which is, in a sense, traditional today, but it's, you know, there's a bit of pan Indian in that. So I'm kind of careful in how I word it, but true ceremonial songs are definitely traditional. I'll get into that later. This first song is called Eagle Song. A friend of mine wrote it, and I probably wrote the lyrics to it, and I sat on it for years, and sometimes that's just how certain songs kind of work out. So, you just get an opportunity to listen to the horrors of growing up in a residential school. And I was welcoming in some freshmen here a few years back, and somebody approached me and was telling me about, now that it had come out in the news, how his grandfather was now in counseling, 60, 70-something years. He suppressed all of that, and now that it was back out in the open, and it just, thinking about that, and I'll think about my father, really, right? 80 years old, all of a sudden, such a strong man, all of a sudden needing counseling. And just how profound that must have been. So, love to do this when I'm doing, sometimes I'm playing a little more contemporary than what I'm doing tonight, but I appreciate the opportunity to provide this information and sing some of these songs. This is a lodge song, medicine song, ceremonial song. It would have been sung when a child first learned to walk. So think about it. Your first major accomplishment in life is you can walk, really, right? So now as a child, you're probably not as susceptible to being, to pray. You know, you can get someplace where you want. And the village would celebrate that. So you would have, a child would be in a lodge with one of the parents, and the rest of the village, with the other parent, would be outside, and they'd be singing this song as an encouragement. So compared to what you experienced in the residential schools, imagine having your entire village there when your first real memories or your first real experiences with the village is them singing, encouraging you to come out, and how proud you must feel, right? I'll tend to make songs up, put a rattle on a hand drum song, not be all that traditional because I don't really, so if there's any culture police. But this song, you can tell there's Native people in the audience, yeah. This song, I'd already wrote one song. It was an honoring song for a group of Wampanoags down in Massachusetts. Somebody handed me the lyrics, and I said, well, I'll think of something as I'm driving around. And I literally pulled out of the driveway, got to the next street, and I already had the song down. And I came back, and everybody was like, did you forget something? I went, no, you want to hear the song. But this song in particular, this woman and her husband put together a book on the Massachusetts dialect. So, Abenaki people, we've been fortunate enough to have our languages documented early on. And from what I've been told, the Abenaki language in particular is the most documented language of any indigenous language out there, really, right? And your library has quite a few of the recordings, and an alum, Joseph St. Laurent, wrote a book to teach Abenaki people how to speak English. Because if you're in Canada and you can't speak English, you're not really going to get a job. And here in the United States, we have English as a second language in every school. Well, up there, if your parents aren't fluent English speakers, you're not going to an English-speaking school unless you can prove your proficiency in the language. They don't even mess around up there. But because the book was written, there's so much that we can do with the language. I mean, there are books that are greater dictionaries, but our grammar is surreal. Like everything is, well, most Romantic languages, you have masculine and feminine. Our word for he, she, and they, it's one word, it's agma. We really don't think about the gender. It's whether something is living as an animate or something is inanimate, like a rock or something along those lines. So the wild thing is that corn in our language is not considered to be animate. It's kamonal. It's kamonal. It's got an AL ending on it. So the plural of it is, it's not considered animate. But if you think about it, corn, if you were to plant a field of corn and come back the following year, you wouldn't have corn growing. You might have a couple of things that might have popped up, but corn can't be self-sufficient. It's required, it needs people to plant it and cultivate it. The wild thing is that I know people that have cultivated corn and in selective seeding have found corn that is self-seeding. So our people, knowing that we've done this to it, don't even think about it. In our language, it's considered an inanimate object. But a drum, something that's made from wood, right, that's inanimate. It's not live. A tree is live, but you're making it from wood. And a hide of an animal, even though it's coming from an animal that was living, the hide itself is considered to be inanimate. But a drum, that's considered to be a living being. That's considered, it has a spirit. So when you watch people at powwows, really, right, and they're protecting their drum, they don't want this addict. Grandmothers at powwows, those boys have been drinking, and they'll turn the powwow drum on its side to protect the drum, right? It kind of changes the way you think about it. And when I first started drumming, I was with the Medewan. I don't know how many people out there have heard about that, but among Algonquin people and Woodlands people, Medewans were they could shapeshift. There's documented, so Passaconaway was a Medewan, powerful Medewan, and a powerful chief. Much has been written about him. But when they were burning witches at the stake in Salem, they were also writing that Passaconaway could turn into a bear. Passaconaway could turn into a snake. Passaconaway could be in two places. So those people knew what he could do, but they wouldn't call it witchcraft or try to do anything to him because they knew what he had was real. Sorry, I didn't mean to get too serious on that one. So this is a song that this woman was reclaiming, or she received a grant to take the Massachusetts dialect, which is really one of the only ones that really survived that particular dialect, because it was written down by Roger Williams and other people. Anyways, this is a song about giving thanks for the rocks, the trees, the water. And before I lose this, I did a talk here with some contemporary Indigenous music class, really, right? And I talked about, how crazy it is when people actually get wrapped up in that. But I also asked in your mind, what's a traditional song? And the further out west you go, the more pre-contact it is. Like old songs are considered to be pre-contact. So here I am writing new songs. And this particular song, I wrote it, just kind of forgot about it. The drum group picked it up as their drum song. And there I was at a powwow, we're having the feast. And somebody asked this elder to sing a song before the feast. And this is a song that she started singing. And I went, that's a traditional song. It went out in a traditional manner, and it came back in a traditional manner. Not that I'm going to argue, the reality of it being something pre-contact, but for us, there's just not a lot of songs left. So I thought this was pretty cool. Bane wate hoki kisu Tabane wate Nupe kosa kwanash Tabane wate Metagwash kesaku Katane to badne, katane to badne, hey, oh. The badne what's it? Okay, kesu. The badne what's it? The pecosa quanas. The badne what's it? Metagwas kesaku. Katane to badne, katane to badne, hey, oh. Okay, well, so I'm in the middle. I started writing songs to the powwow circuit some 20-something years ago and fought all of that, because here I was, you have northern plains music, you have southern plains music, but eastern music, because people had to hear so much of it for so long, was certainly not as desirable, especially when you're getting into the last decade or so. So what I was doing for a lot of people was, and I had people almost giving me a hard time for it, but recently I got my affirmations. I had a group of young singers tell me that these are competition from Mashantucket, and they travel all over the country playing at some of the best powwows there are. And he looks at me and goes, "Oh, we listened to your CDs." There's a kid in his late 20s, and I just went, "For real?" I'm kind of joking. And I was kind of blown away, like letting that sit in. And then this was at the break. We were eating. I wound up talking to one guy, and the drum keeper, the lead singer, he came over to talk to me and say that. But then there we were, about an hour into the second half of the day, and I'm doing a song. We're like trying to find stuff. My guys, we live all over the place. Now I brought somebody up from Florida, so we're trying to find songs. We got that, oh no. And he goes, "How about this one?" I go, "Oh, I don't know." So we decided to do it. And here comes a kid, like walking over with his beater in a chair, wanting to sit down at my drum and sing. A great northern singer singing with an eastern singer with originals, and I went, wow, that's talk about an affirmation. Like that was just so cool for me to experience. Now I'm trying to do some contemporary work, and at a language immersion class at Middlebury for the Abenaki language, my final project a couple of years ago was to translate "Let It Be," because the idea is, if I can translate an Anglo song and make it in my language, that's happening among the Dene people too. There's a lot of that going on. Then and I did a. Hopefully I get a chance. I don't talk my way out of this. I did a song at the State House in Montpelier, and there were some 4th and 5th graders singing with me. I had them singing the chorus of a song about global warming. And afterwards, I got interviewed by a journalist. She goes, "What is the significance of that happening with the children singing?" And I just looked at her. Yeah, right. And I went, a popular expression among our people is that you need to decolonize. And what better way to decolonize than to have the descendants of your oppressors singing in your language in the House of Government for the state, right here on the House floor. I said, it doesn't get any better than that. So I'm putting together an album, and I've recorded these kids in their classroom. This is back in 2019. And because I didn't want to release an album during a pandemic, I've been sitting on all this, and I recently found that, and I'm like, how cool is that going to be able to release something on Spotify with, Anglo kids singing, doing a superb job of singing in the Abenaki language. So I was at a powwow, and somebody told me a long time ago, there's two kinds of people at a powwow, the real intelligent ones and the crazies. Everybody of average intelligence, their kids are playing soccer. So there I was in my camper, we're on the break, and this man comes up to me and starts singing my praises. I I didn't realize it, but he had just bought 2 of my CDs and was, the powwow CDs, and was spending a lot of time listening to them. And then he told me he played congas for Carlos Santana for 30 years. And I just went, this guy is crazy, you know, to come up to me and say that, you know. And wasn't long after that when I was asked to do a cover of a Tom Rush song. And the following year I played it for him. He happened to be in my camper, and I'm playing it for him, and he's snapping his knuckles on the table with his keys, and he's going, I could put a million different things to this. And I went, that's funny, because your conga playing influenced my guitar playing. And I'd asked him if I could record him on that project, and he was good with it. So it came around April of 2017, and he was going to be up in the area, staying at a woman's house he referred to as his sister. But, you know, among Indigenous people, you go, I don't know if that's his biological sister, but I'm just going to accept it as that, really, right? And I say that because after I recorded him, we went out to dinner, and she played keys for Led Zeppelin when they toured the United States. So for me, at this particular time, I'm thinking to myself, if I never do anything else in music, I recorded some guy that played for Carlos Santana for 30 years, really, right? And I'm hanging with the woman who played keys for Led Zeppelin, and they encouraged me to do what I'm doing. I'm going to play the first song I wrote out of this. I call it White Dog, and it's got some political connotations to it, but it's about, you know, with the dog that's traveling around wreaking havoc on the world, who's a womanizer and that type of stuff. And I, you know, got in the, when we were dealing with Standing Rock at that point in time, really, right? So, you know, Anglo people wanting pipelines, you know what I mean? That's like, no, that's just not cool. So this is White Dog. Wabasin matakando ndakina idahidam hogana ta auskauba gabuata Basema o demote nasko baka dameka kando tsiwi baka dasi ma gabuata meluki Wigiga, Gitaskoga. I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but I definitely have one more that I'd like to share with you guys. This is called on that decolonizing thing. I kind of wanted to write a song about that. I had that in my head, and where I live, it's called Graniteville, up in Vermont. It's where all the quarries are. So like granite from my neighborhood makes its way out to Italy, at Michelangelo's studio, where they'll work on it there. It wasn't until like 2020 that I found some of the paths that were up there. You could walk around and everything. And if you're ever up there, there are birch trees literally growing out of rubble. They call it the grout pile, so big chunks of granite that they really couldn't turn into a tombstone are sitting in a giant, it's almost like a mountain, and that's there until they can figure out what they're going to do with it. Lately, they seem to be crushing it and turning it into pavement. But for me, it's a wild thing to see those trees just growing. There's no dirt, really. It's like they're just growing out of chunks of granite. And I first started writing a song early on, probably about 2017. I was walking down the bike path. There's a bike path. And all of a sudden, I could hear these ravens. And that's my daughter's name. My daughter's named Raven, and she's true to her name. She's a trickster. She loves all the shiny things, everything. And her mother didn't know who was going to be Raven until she was born. And when she was born, it was pretty obvious which one was Raven. So to hear hundreds of ravens in the trees singing, and doing that was just wild. I got down to the bottom of the hill as I was walking. They were up on the hill here, and I'm walking down. I get down to the river. And I thought, oh, man, I'd just love to go up there and see them, just get in that. And I started walking up, and boy, did they carry on. Like, they were freaking out. Like, I was coming up. I walk back down, continue on the bike path. But as I was coming back, I had a pair of sentries following me. They would let me go ahead, and they would follow me into the next big tree, and then they would go in that, and I'd walk out a little further, and they just kept making sure that I left. And the connection with my daughter and everything else, I just thought that was so cool, So. Birch trees growing on some new mountains made of stones. They're taking back our home. Off in the distance, I hear the raven. I hear raven song. Oh, they're watching. They got eyes on me. In the sky, my man. Oh, I keep talking to me. Oh, darling. Oh, darling. In the sky, my man. Oh, I keep talking to me. Oh, darling. Oh, darling. I see the lessons from the trees. They're growing out of those rocks like this. Yeah, sweet. No diamond, no kitchen casa, sa, noodling toe. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was fantastic. It's a real blessing to hear our language sang in such an amazing way. And I want to thank our panelists again for an amazing presentation and discussion that you gifted us with tonight. And at this stage, I'm going to ask Paul to come up here. So we're getting ready to send you off to eat. And that's always the best part, or sometimes the best part of the evening, especially when you have a lot of traditional foods out there. So if you've never had some native foods, here's your opportunity to try some. And so Paul and I are going to sing a traditional feasting song. As Brian mentioned earlier, there are songs that are ancient traditional songs, and there are contemporarily written songs. This is actually an ancient one.
We do a lot of deep research on ethnomusicology, and a lot of our songs got morphed into what we call vocables. The words got lost in meaning over time.
In other words, fa la 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 la.
And that was very common. I mean, a lot of the powwow songs that we've analyzed came out of the Southwest, and we found everything from wax cylinders to old vinyl from Canon Records, and the language and the musicology back then was a lot less drums. There was a lot of rattles being used, but this one was lost, and it's a Abenaki one. We've documented about 80 that we can resurrect from the dead, but they've been misused in the powwow circuit for other purposes. And this one was so simple that it was like right in your face, and we didn't even realize it was there because it had been corrupted for so many years. Mitsida, 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 Guanalia Guando de, Guanalia Guando de, Guanalia Guano Dana de. Krosmida, 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 Guanalia Guando de, Guanalia Guando de, Guanalia Guano Dana de. Very simply, Mitsida means let's eat. Kadosmida says let's drink. And the refrain is like a gathering to get you there to do those things. So with that.
So in other words, Mitsida ta kurosmida. Let's go eat and drink.
It's so simple.